All right, let's go to Sacramento, California, and talk to Kayla. What's up, Kayla?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Excellent. What's up?
First of all, thanks for taking my call, and thank you, Jenna, for giving me a call. I am like super nervous right now. I like never understand why anybody's nervous when I listen to your show, and now that I'm here, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I understand.
Listen, it's just you and me and like millions of other people listening to this. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Not scary at all.
Exactly. What's up?
Okay, so I think I'm going to just give a little bit of background first and then ask my question because it'll make a little bit more sense that way.
Cool.
But basically why I'm calling is I have a tendency to be pretty forgetful. And nothing, I mean, to me, that seems like out of the norm or, crazy. Like, I forget where I put things. I forget to respond to texts or send texts to people. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So, during doing certain things around the house, non-routine appointments, sometimes I forget those. And then, like if I'm meeting up with a friend, I just blank on everything that we talked about last time we hung out. So anyways, but my husband recently has been, when we fight, he's been kind of like bringing up my forgetfulness and, making it seem super, like bad basically. And, he's like, I think the reason why you're forgetting things is because they're not priorities. And if you just prioritize things better, then you wouldn't forget. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 babies under 2. And I already struggle with like anxiety. And, especially when I get super stressed out and I'm having a conversation with him, I just freeze up. And, when he asks me something to remember back to, another event, I blank. I'm like, I have no idea. So anyways, basically what I want to know is, like, could he be right? Is there something that I'm not seeing? I genuinely want to know. And also, how can I just help him understand where I'm coming from, especially when we're in conflict, when we're fighting, I guess.
Awesome. Great questions. So a couple of quick background questions. Do you have a trauma background or no?
What? I mean, define trauma. I mean, my parents were divorced, and I would say yes. Like it was a kind of a catastrophe. My dad describes it as for all of my siblings.
Okay,
so, yeah,
I just want to play this out how you told that. And I think this is important. Define trauma. I mean, they're divorced. My dad calls it a catastrophe, right? So we don't have to dig into all that. Here's I'm trying to figure out the right place to start. I'm going to get a little bit nerdy, and I'm going to try to keep it as non-nerdy as possible. And just know when I do this, my neuroscience friends all send me direct messages, and they're like, oh my gosh, you blew it, Delony. Okay, so just know that. I'm not going to make anybody happy with this, but I think it's important. The amygdala and the hippocampus are these little parts of your brain that help deal with your body's fear response, okay? And hippocampus does other things like memory and spatial functionings, like where are you, and it helps influence emotional regulation, all this stuff. But here's what's important: that the parts of your brain that are dealing with, is this a fear, is this a threat, is there too much coming into the system at once, are also where a lot of your brain does its memory storage and retrieval. And that makes sense over time. And memory is scattered throughout the brain. Those aren't the only 2 places. But here's why that's important. Think of it this way. You can be watching a football game, and you can look at the game and be like, why aren't they scoring? And somebody would look at you and say, well, they're playing defense right now. Like the offense isn't even on the field. They're trying to not let the other team score right now. And so if you think about a world that is a body that has been negotiating trauma for a long time, a body that's anxious, a body that has two little kids and is trying to figure out what just happened to my own body, what happened to my life, what happened to my marriage, what happened to all these things. You have a brain that is decidedly trying to not die right now. And the thought that it's going to spend energy making new memories and remembering things that aren't about not dying, it's very common for people who struggle with anxiety to have short-term memory. Like, I just forgot that thing. I blew right past it because you got a body that's just sprinting and fighting and running for its life. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, okay, and your husband's got a point. You can't be in relationship if you forget things all the time. You can't be in a relationship with somebody else if they pour their heart out to you and you just let it. You don't do the things upstream that make you able to hear those conversations and connect. Same with your friends. Same with doctor's appointments. And so I want to give you a context, not an excuse. Okay. You and I could probably spend a couple hours together, and you could tell me some stories from your past that would probably blow my mind. Right? Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay. I want you to know you're not broken and you're not screwed up. You have a brain that's just trying to protect you, and it probably has been for a long time. And you're a wife. You signed up for a lifetime relationship. You got two little kids. You signed up for 2 lifetime relationships. And you're just probably a pretty good friend too, right?
Yeah, I try.
What a flex. Like, yeah, I try. All right. So the healing is going to be in 2 ways here. Number 1, you have to work towards building a non-anxious life. And that's really hard with 2 little kids. What does that look like? That probably looks like you, for the first time in your life, saying needs out loud. Saying, I need help with. Could you be a part of this? I don't like it when you fill in the blank. I really need a night off tonight. How good are you at saying your needs out loud?
Actually, I'm pretty good. My husband knows I'm pretty vocal about my needs. I just kind of grew up in a family like that.
Are they needs or are they demands?
That's a good question.
Because I can demand the dishes get put away in the right way. That's different than I need some help. Yeah,
I try my best to form it as questions because I know, I want to respect him and I want to, not just bully him around, but...
okay, so I'm going to stop right there. That's the problem. And people listening are going to go, what? Okay. Asking questions and being kind? Asking questions can be really, really passive-aggressive.
Okay.
And I would much rather a couple sit down, not in a fight, not in a discussion, but say, all right, it's Sunday night. We're entering into this week. What does this week look like calendar-wise? What's this week look like budget-wise? Like, how are you doing? How can I love you best this week? And then it's, hey, would you pick up the dishes? If I walk in after a wild day of recording shows and doing interviews and I walk in, and then my wife's like, hey, would you do, that's different than that. Because what she's not saying, would you? She's saying, do this. And she's wrapping it up in a nice, pretty package. It would be I would love to have some headspace that suggests that I'm like, hey, I know when I get home, I'm going to still be fully on and I'm going to be still fully participating because we've already talked about this. Because she texted me at 3 p.m. saying, today's been hell. I need some help when you get home. Awesome, I'm in. See what I'm saying? So I would suggest figuring out a way to be more direct. And y'all do this together. A lot of times, folks who have not been direct, but they just talk around it, directness comes out really sharp and hard. And then the other person's like, whoa, right? And so it's just learning how to say, like, here's what I need. In a, like, it's all good, just normal context, right? Here's the other thing. I want you to get really intentional about writing things down.
Okay.
If you know you struggle with remembering things, then I'm going to put it on you to start making plans for how you can remember things better. It's why I struggle with anxiety. I have for years. I always carry a note card with me with what's going on today. I just keep it with me all the time because my memory is not trustworthy. I've learned that. I forget everything.
Okay.
and I still got to change the oil, and I still got to show up to my kid's game, and I still got to go pick up my daughter from whatever because I said I would. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I say
Yeah,
that, does that sound like an
no problem.
attack, or is that do you know like, all right, that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying definitely makes sense. I wouldn't necessarily say like my husband. I don't really know how to describe this. Like, it kind of takes me off guard, honestly, if like he did take something offensive. You know, if I were to like ask him to do something or whatever, I think he would prefer me to ask him rather than demand it, because he's kind of like this guy that's like, you know, I want to feel respected as like the man of our relationship. And anyway, so asking him to do things, I don't think he really minds it. And he usually responds pretty well. However, there is something actually, as you were talking, that I remembered is one, I think our most recent argument that we had. I was like, you know, after he was telling me, you know, you're forgetting these things and you're just not prioritizing, you know, whatever it was that he said. He was like, or I asked him, I'm like, can you help me remember? You know, can you, you know, because I tried to set reminders on my phone and, you know, or have him text me a text message and I'll just leave it unread so I can always have it on my phone notifications. So I try to do things. It's just with our little ones, it's not always like I'm super distracted all the time. So anyway, so I asked him, I'm like, hey, you know, can you just remind me, you know, like you obviously know that's not a strength of mine, but it is of yours. You know, is that something that you can help me with? And his response to me was, you know, I can't just always be doing that for you. And, you know, like you need to be self-sufficient and, you know, like I could probably help you here and there, but you have to like figure it out pretty much. And I was just like when he said that, I was honestly just pretty hurt by it, you know, because I'm like, okay, you're my husband. I thought we're supposed to try and be a team here. And, you know, it's something that
you're asking him to be a parent.
Yeah.
And I want you to start leaning into, this is going to sound crazy. I want you to start leaning into not having your life dragged around by two toddlers. The greatest gift you can give those two toddlers, two infants, is you make sure you're well. And I know they got to eat on a schedule. I know they got to sleep. I get that. But the number of kids who run their households and their parents are left haggard and beat down in the wake of what these kids are demanding and needing and wanting and all, it's chaos. I want you to flip around and take ownership of that. That doesn't mean you're not going to be exhausted. Of course you are. Doesn't mean you're not going to be frustrated. Of course you are. You got two little ones. But I want you to be on top, on the front end of it, not just a passive recipient. And when you ask, I didn't word this right. I'm not saying make demands of your husband. There's a difference between barking orders and passively. Because here's a good example. You said, "Would you just remind me?" And he said, "No." And you didn't have a comeback for that other than you were just hurt by it. And so when you ask a question, you're inviting somebody to give their feedback, right? They give their answer. And that's not what needs are. Needs are a gentle, I need some support and help here. And you're also asking him, like I said, you're asking him to be your dad. Hey, will you tell me when school starts? Will you remind me to change my underwear and to put on deodorant and brush my teeth? Like that. So there is partnership and there is working together. And this is a wild season. I would much rather you sit down and say, hey, I'm really scared about this. Motherhood is harder on me than I thought it was going to be. I need some help around here. I want to hire some help around here. I need a week, once a week, I need to go spend some time with some girlfriends and just not have kids all over me. I need to fill in the blank. Like I need these things. Our life is really overscheduled right now, and I need a way to take some of the things off the calendar. I often, and there's some great research on clutter and anxiety. I often am guilty of leaving a bunch of unread emails, a bunch of unread text on my phone, and it starts to make me bananas, right? It's not actually helping. My brain is still running. Got to do that thing, got to do that thing, got to do that thing. And then I'm on to the next thing. And I'm on to the next thing. And then I get another text, another text, another text. And so many of them, I've just had to start saying, I'm not going to get back to this one. And I'll just mark it unread. But that's me taking ownership of my calendar. There's 2 or 3 unreads right now, and I'll get them before the end of the day. That's kind of my 24-hour rule with myself. But the more you allow these things to build and build and build and build and build, you're just signaling to your body, you're creating a world that your body can't exist in. It's just too much, just too much, too much, too much, too much, too much. So if you think about unread messages, if you think about unread texts or unresponded to emails, just think of somebody knocking on your door and you don't answer it, and you're just going to let them keep knocking because you'll answer them later. And then somebody else starts ringing the doorbell, and then somebody else just starts yelling through the window, and somebody else just starts calling your phone. You can't do anything after that. And that's what's happening inside your head when you just let stuff go, let stuff go, let stuff go. All I have to say is this. You've created a very anxious world for yourself, and that's super common with toddlers. And now your husband's getting frustrated because his world looks different. You're frustrated because your world looks different. And it's time for you and your husband to get together and create a whole new world, a whole new planet for how we're going to operate here. And I want you to practice remembering, practice writing things down, practice leaning into those things, and also practice saying your needs in a kind, gentle way, not in a demand way, not in a catching somebody off guard way, but letting people know ahead of time. And if you find that you're being gaslit on some things, that your husband's like, oh, you forgot I said that. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. And that's where writing things down is important, because you can come back, and if he's kind of jerking you around a little bit, that's important too. But you're not crazy. You're like an exhausted mom that the world's just happening to. And I want to encourage you to get some women in your life that you can walk alongside and begin to get on top of this, of the crest the wave here, right? So the water's not just blasting you in the face anymore. Crest the wave here. And then you can start to take ownership of the calendars, take ownership of these kids' routines, take ownership of what you need in your home and asking for those needs. And then take ownership of, I forget stuff a lot. So I'm going to start leaning into some practices where I can start remembering things a little bit better. You're on the right path. You're on the right path. Thanks for the call, Kayla.